When it comes to the job of parenting, there's not a lot out there that is much worse than watching your little one, your baby, your infant, your toddler. Even as they get older, it really doesn't get too much easier, but especially when our kids are little, watching them get sick, watching them struggle with maybe an ear infection, a sinus infection, something regarding, the chest, the lungs, and a deep cough that they just can't kick. It's just one of those things that's lots of our littles will go through, and unfortunately, they tend to go through it a lot of times because of teething, seasonal changes, growth spurts. These are natural parts of the immune system and the respiratory system, and just your little one's health maturing and getting stronger. But in today's world, because we have what we call the perfect storm, which it factors in the stress that happens ahead of time that causes a child's nervous system, their immune system, respiratory system to be weakened, to be more susceptible. And because we live in a crazy, toxic, stressful world where more of this stuff comes into our kids' systems and create it can create this inflammation and challenge. Our little ones are sick more often, more severely than ever before. So that really brings the problem that this video is going to really dive deep into and bring to the forefront for more families than ever before. And it's really antibiotics, and more importantly, the overuse and the misuse of antibiotics. It's a real important topic that is talked about some out there in healthcare, talked about some out there in the traditional media and social media and so forth. But when you dive into the science and the research and the reality of how big of a factor it is in the development of chronic illness in kids, it's something that should be talked about 10 times more than it is right now. And it's something you as parents definitely deserve to know because the research is clear. And in fact, the research has been clear for about 2 to 3 decades that the use of antibiotics for traditional infections such as ear infections, sinus infections, and respiratory infections are almost always not effective. We've known that pediatricians should use what's called watch and wait with ear infections and respiratory infections because most of them are viral. Most of them aren't even the virus. The virus really isn't the problem. It's the body's compromised plumbing, drainage, and neuroimmune function that allows the virus to set up and create the mucus, to create the congestion, to create the inflammation, which then eventually could be called an infection. And that's when most of the time antibiotics show up. Because if you're at the urgent care or the minute clinic or the pediatrician, when you work in that environment and all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And so still today, despite the research showing, hey, there's better clinical protocols. The AAP says it, the CDC says it. I mean, it's been around that we shouldn't put antibiotics into little kids so often, especially. But not much has changed. As a result, what has changed? We have seen a massive rise in asthma, allergies, autism, ADHD, anxiety. And those are just the A's. So chronic autoimmune, chronic neurodevelopmental challenges have risen. And here's what parents deserve to know. It's clearly proven that early exposure to antibiotics increases risks of all of those conditions, not just the immune-based conditions, where you may have learned about this topic already, and how the gut and the immune system and antibiotics get in there, and they will kill off all the good guys while they're trying to kill off all the bad guys. And that is part of this neurophysiological pathway that leads to this increased incidence of autoimmune stuff like asthma and allergies. But did you know about the connections to autism and ADHD? And here's why. Because the nervous system, which is really stressed out, really out of balance, in kiddos with autism, ADHD, and anxiety, the nervous system relies on the body to be not so bothersome, to be not so stressful. And so when the gut and the immune system have havoc wreaked upon it from antibiotics early in life, well, that stresses out the brain. There's something called a gut-brain connection. So there's huge risk factors involved with antibiotics in little kids especially, and later on in life, them struggling with these conditions. Obesity has also been linked to early use of antibiotics because it leaves a child's gut and inflammatory pathways all messed up. The disruption of what's called the gut microbiome is a big deal. And so it would be one thing if these antibiotics, the vast majority of time, were being used in a very straightforward way. If we know for sure that's a bacterial infection, we know that would actually only be the clinical criteria number one for the use of antibiotics. And number two, not only is it a bacterial infection, but can we look at this kid's case right now as an individual? Because, here's the problem with healthcare and a conventional pediatrician: nothing is individualized, nothing is personalized to the child. Everybody gets this cookie cutter flowchart approach. But if we looked at it and said, okay, your child has a bacterial infection, but is their body strong enough? Can we support their body naturally? Can we get the natural defenses that God gave our kids in their nervous system, in their immune system, in their digestive system? Is that working well enough, strong enough that the body could get rid of this infection on its own? And right here is the last most important part I want to make in this video. What if we could not only count on that to just kind of genetically, innately be there, because it is, we have literal immune boosting programming passed down for generations. Viruses and bacteria, for the most part, aren't new. Our kids, even when they're little and they have these immature systems, they are ready to fight and battle their microbiome, their nervous system, their neuroimmunological genetic code. It's in there. We should be able to count on it. So not only is it naturally, innately, genetically in there, what if there's things we could do to boost it and support it? There is stuff we can do to improve the function of our kids' bodies. And you can find that on our website, what we call Nature's Medicine Cabinet, or our Raising Healthy Kids Naturally Playbook. These are both great resources. And if you want those resources, just comment below, because that's really what antibiotics do. They don't really get to the root cause of what they're used for the vast majority of the time. And again, this isn't me saying it as a pediatric chiropractor who you may think, yeah, that's your interpretation. No, this is the medical research. The medical guidelines is what I'm reporting on with this video. And on the website, pxdocs.com, you can read the articles about the overuse of antibiotics, and you can see all the research citations in there. So the issue with it are the long-term challenges that they create. So just to finish up, because this is also important to note, that antibiotics, they also have risk of allergic reactions or building antibiotic resistance over time, so that maybe when your child would really need them from a big injury or a challenge later on in life, now that antibiotic or that whole class of antibiotics may not be that effective for your child. And it's actually a global health threat as well, because this problem that we're applying primarily for you, mom and dad, watching it to your child, apply it to millions of kids over the last generation or 2 generations, maybe even 3 generations, where we've overused antibiotics. And the data on that, once again, is just super clear. And that is all adding up to a real, actual pandemic and overusing antibiotics, where this antibiotic resistance is bigger than ever before, and a real crisis and a real threat. And we've got kids sicker than ever before because of all the things we've covered with how it suppresses and it creates an imbalance into their immune system, their gut, and their nervous system. So while antibiotics will always continue to be life-saving, we can't get done with this video without saying that when used appropriately, and antibiotics firmly, they belong there, and they always will be. We want them. We need them in those emergency situations. Thank God, literally, for them. But we all know that too much of a good thing can really turn on us really quick. And we've taken this thing that was discovered a couple generations ago and we've completely overused it for our kids, especially. And now it's really messing with their health of this generation of kids. And if we don't turn this tide, then we're going to mess it up for the next generations going forward as well. And so, if this video suits you and your family, and you want antibiotics and medications as a last resort, last choice for your kiddos, well, then do what I already kind of talked about here in this video. Go to our website, read more about this, go to pxdocs.com to learn more about this. Comment below if you want our Nature's Medicine Cabinet and our Raising Healthy Kids Naturally guides. The keyword there is naturally, and we'll get it to you. Get more information, get empowered moms and dads. This information you don't just deserve to know. I honestly think you need to know this because making these decisions is something you should have an empowered, educated, informed doctor on your team helping you make that decision. So if you feel like your doctor just always turns to medications, always turns to antibiotics, find a new one. Okay, find a new holistic, more naturally minded pediatrician or family doctor. And then also maybe add this kind of doctor to your team, a neurologically focused pediatric chiropractor. We talked about supporting the body instead of suppressing symptoms. That's the exact job of a pediatric chiropractor, and we do just that at Reissing Health. So get to the website, get the information so that you can have natural health boosting short-term and long-term options first for your family and save antibiotics for last and emergency situations only. Take care, y'all. God bless.